Welcome to another episode of She Conquers Dirt, a Bower Power Hour series. Charlene and I have a great guest for you guys today. We're really excited.
Yes, we do. Thanks, Avis. Please welcome Rose Winn. Today, this is going to be a very interesting show about a unsexy topic called land use, but it's probably one of the most important topics that we need to be discussing here on this show. So I'm very excited about this for us and for our future generations and what she has to share with us.
Absolutely. Let's dig into this hot topic. But before that, be sure you like, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you know what we're doing on this channel. And also stay with us until the end and you get to enter to win.
She Conquers Dirt features the stories of incredible off-road ladies associated with Ladies Off-Road Network. Bower Power Hour can be found on YouTube and your favorite podcast outlet. Now buckle up and let's roll.
Okay, Rose, let's grab first gear and get right into it. Can you give everyone a little 3-minute full send bio of yourself to get us started? What do they need to know about you?
I grew up with a love for the outdoors and travel, and I was homeschooled in a rural area. So I was living in the era of free-range childhood when that was still a thing. And I had lots of time on my hands for being a homeschooler. And so I spent a lot of my free time just hiking and exploring through the hills surrounding Paso Robles, which is in the central California area, kind of near the coast. And that really colored and shaped my idea of myself, my sense of place, and things I loved. I just, any chance I had to be outdoors, that's where you'd find me. As I grew older, I had opportunities to travel. I did a lot of mission work in South America and Europe, and I was an exchange student in China. And so that also kind of shaped my love for exploration and just checking out anything new, really relishing an opportunity to try anything. And my mantra for life became, I'll try anything once. And then if I love it, I'll do it again and again, but you never know till you try. It's taken me a long way, and I'm happy I had those early formative experiences to kind of shape that philosophy. When I grew up and I had my own family, I raised my daughters in the foothills of the Sierra Nevada mountains, and I really tried, I was earnest about wanting to give them the same opportunity for exploration and freedom as much as was possible. We were out of the free-range childhood era, so I couldn't just let them wander the hills the way that I had. But we bought property out in the hills so that they could, at least within the border of our acreage, do anything they wanted. And then we spent as much time as possible out in the mountains. And so I was also blessed to be able to work from home remotely for a few different universities throughout pretty much most of their childhood. And so we'd spend our summers up in the mountains, and I'd, do my work from our campsite during the early part of the day. And then we'd go out hiking and fishing and exploring for the rest of the day. And that really shaped their childhood. In fall, we'd hunt. In winter, we'd ski. In spring, we'd get out there as much as we could on weekends until school was out. And so that was the chunk of 20 years of childhood or child rearing that I had with them. And I'm really happy that we got to do that, because now they love doing stuff outdoors, and I still have exploration buddies now that both my girls are adults. So super happy for that. Professionally, I pursued a career in career counseling and academia, so totally unrelated to land use. I worked for several universities building employer partnership divisions and leading career counseling teams. That was really fun and meaningful. I found a lot of purpose in that work, and I love working with students. That just is something that really makes me feel like I'm coming alive, and getting to walk with them as they're making that college to career transition was really meaningful too. So thoroughly relished in that, did a lot of class instruction, and found some great success by the grace of God. I was able to really take off in those arenas. In the midst of that, I also got involved with local advocacy. As my girls and I were spending a lot of time outdoors, there was an era where we just saw this rash of trail closures. And I felt like every time we went out into the mountains, there's another new green gate. There's another set of giant boulders blocking a trail. There's more signs up. And I was looking around just thinking, what the heck is going on? And why can't we go to the places that we love? And so I started to look into it a little bit more. I encountered endangered species issues and rulemaking, all things I did not understand. And so I started to do more research because I can't get into anything without thoroughly understanding it. So I was just like, I have to wrap my head around this and figure out what's going on. The more I learned about what was going on, the more upset I got at how wrong some of it was. And of course, there's a need for conservation and protections of certain areas and species and things like that. But the scale at which I saw things shutting down was just preposterous. And this is in one area of one part of the mountains. And so I started getting involved with local advocacy to organize people and have some voice for what was really starting to impact our community, our local businesses, families that depend on being able to get into the mountains for their livelihood. You know, there's all the multiple uses from grazing and concessionaires and guided outfits. There's businesses up in the mountains, and then all the hospitality, all that was getting impacted. Not to mention, I wasn't able to hike where I wanted.
Right.
So through advocacy, I learned about the variations in federal and state and county oversight and management for our public lands, and started to appreciate what was actually going on with rulemaking and how decisions are made and what project level versus forest wide level decisions look like. I don't know that I necessarily had any major impacts during citizen advocacy, except for a few kind of more specific issues, but we were able to grow a pretty good network of folks that were engaged in these things consistently. And then there came a point, we had this massive wildfire in our area in 2020. It displaced hundreds of families, literally destroyed like 10% of the housing in our area, and eradicated whole herds of cattle that grazed. It was absolutely devastating. And in the summer following that fire, we had a forest-wide closure, which at this point, since I had done so much research and been involved in citizen advocacy, I was like, this is wrong. They're not allowed to do that. You can't just shut down the whole forest. I was really upset about it. I went to our county board of supervisors, and having built some connections and networked at the county level through all the other stuff prior and some other engagement I had with the county through some political activism, went to them and said, we really need you to look at this, because you need to be aware your whole forest just got shut down, and there's no definitions to it. There's no end date. They're calling it temporary, but there's no definition to what temporary means. And thankfully, I'm really grateful. We got the attention of our county supervisors, especially the one that oversaw our district. He got involved, and we'd already had some good relationship that was established from prior work. And so he knew that our intent was sincere. It was just myself and a handful of other people that went to him with this issue. And so he said, though, how do I know that it's more people than you who care about this? Like, nobody else has contacted me. So how do I know this matters to other people? And I said, I guarantee you this matters to a lot of other people. And he said, okay, well, why don't you circulate a petition or get some people to contact me and let me know how many people care about this. And I said, okay, no problem. We put out a petition on, I think it was only Facebook, on a Friday. By Monday, we had 850 plus signatures. And so Monday morning I went to him and I said, okay, this is where we're at. How much are you looking for? Kind of where should we gear our goal from here? Is like, wow, that's more than I ever thought that you would be able to get. This is plenty. And by midday that Monday, he was doing a public press conference with our forest supervisor and our county sheriff, announcing that they had to reopen the forest. And that was phenomenal. I was actually blown away. I was so thrilled. I literally, if I could do cartwheels, I would have been doing cartwheels. I was just over the moon excited. And because this was August, we had so much more of the hiking season open. And, I agree that the intent of that closure was for fire safety. And I can understand that need. But there's other ways to accomplish that without shutting down a whole forest to public access. But things I learned after the fact was that we have 18 national forests in California, and all other 17 national forests had implemented the same forest closure. It was actually statewide, even though it was done forest by forest. And since we had dismantled the closure in our forest, like a domino effect, all the other forests reopened because they no longer had the justification to maintain theirs. And so then I was completely blown away. And I was like, woo, we freed California. All of our forests are reopened. And so it felt really, really good and gratifying to have had a victory where truth won, accuracy won. And you don't always see that in land use, or you don't see it quickly. That was really compelling for me. In the course of doing that, when circulating the petition, I met OHV groups in the area, and I was asking them to sign the petition as well. And through that, discovered folks from Cal 4 who I got a few phone calls from people saying, "Who are you and why are you doing this?" I said, "Well, I'm just a pissed off hiker. My summer's not over yet, and they can't shut my forest down. So will you sign our petition?" And they said, "Well, yeah, we want to look at that petition, but also we're looking for somebody to do this kind of work for us." And my ears immediately pricked. And I said, "Well, tell me more about that. That sounds really interesting." And so through that, the conversation started where I learned about the natural resource consultant role at Cal 4 Wheel, and spent a few months kind of just getting acquainted with them and learning about the association, how they operate, what this role even consisted of. And soon after went ahead and made that shift, which was probably the biggest "I'll try anything once" that I've done in my life, because I jumped from a really stable, successful career with, all the benefits and stability that comes with that, to doing consulting and having to rely completely on myself, and then figuring out how do I start a business? So what do I call this? And just learning it as I went. And so it's been a total blessing. I think it was, providentially orchestrated, because I never would have imagined it or sought it out on my own. And since then, I've really relished working with Cal 4. It's been such an amazing journey. We've had so many really high impact battles, some great successes. We've had losses and disappointments, of course, too, because that happens in land use. But I think no loss comes without some really massive lessons, too. And so these were great learning opportunities and things that we were able to take away and then apply to be more strategic and more impactful in future situations that we encountered.
What a journey so far. Like, what a storyline that you have going on there. Holy cow. Yeah. And behind the scenes, in your, as you open your house door, you also have some fluffy friends as well, don't you?
I've got a pack of beagles. So in a prior era, we did a lot of hunting with hound dogs. And so we've always had hounds. Hunting with dogs was made illegal as another one of these big clampdowns in California. And so we kept our working dogs as pets until they lived out their lives after that. But I always missed the bay, the howl, the song that they had. And so I got a beagle a few years after that, after all of our hounds had lived out their era, just to have the fun of, a more containable, easier to care for version of a hound. But one beagle turned into 8 because we had
8.
Yes, by getting a really great quality beagle of my own that was female, I discovered that there was a neighbor far down the road who had a male quality beagle, and they found each other. So we had puppies, and through a long story I won't get into today, but we ended up keeping them all. So
that's awesome.
I have 5 of those left. Puppies are living out their happy little lives.
That is a commitment. That is a commitment. All right, let's do our first full throttle favorite rapid fire questions. Are you ready?
Hopefully so.
Okay, these are easy. You can do it. You can do it. If you can raise 8 dogs, you can do this. What was your first car?
Oh my gosh, it was amazing. It was a Volkswagen Karmann Ghia. I love that car.
We'll circle back to that. What is your favorite food?
Any kind of fruit. I'm a fruitarian. That's what I eat mostly all day, every day.
What is your music of choice?
Led Zeppelin, or any classic rock of the era.
Nice. Are you a preparer or last minute doer?
Oh, both. I don't mind being prepared, but I also love spontaneity. And so, yeah, I'll jump in on anything, but I also can lay out a plan.
Nice. Early morning or late night?
Also both. Who sleeps in this world? Yeah, I love being up with the dawn, but when there's stuff to do, I just keep going.
Nice. Okay, so back to the Karma Gia. I also wanted that to be my first car.
Oh,
It did not
really?
happen.
Oh, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
it did not happen. That's
Yet.
okay.
It didn't happen yet.
Yeah, you're right. There's always hope. There's
Yes.
always hope.
So is there a special story behind it that you ended up with that, or?
Well, I fell in love with it. I was looking for a first car and I wanted something that was fun. And so, you know, I guess it wasn't terribly practical, but I also needed something that was affordable. So I found one for $2,000. It ran great and it was original owner, no less. It was orange, like the most hideous bright orange. And my goal was to get it painted like this beautiful indigo blue. Um, and I was actually going to learn how to deal with mechanics on it because I had learned that they have fairly simple engines. So I had the simple stuff. I learned how to change the fuel filter and, you know, tinker over some parts. But unfortunately, my freshman year of college, it got totaled because when it was parked outside my dorm room, someone crashed into it. And
Oh
so it just
no.
got smashed to pieces and there was no salvaging it. And so I never got to make my Carmen Gia full dream come to fruition. And so that's why I said, yeah, because one day I'd still love to get another Carmen Gia, finish that out.
There you go.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
That's hilarious.
You just told us an amazing story about how you got into the off-road space. Like it wasn't even really something that you were a part of. You were a hiker and you were doing cool things. And now here you are, right? Really advocating for everybody and keeping the trails open. We talk about the word land use and how unsexy it is. Is there, as you're walking into this with fresh eyes, like have you come up with a better word? Have you come up with something that makes it more sexy that's grabbing people's attention? What are your feels on this?
Well, personally, I think land use is pretty sexy.
Dude, but
I'm in it every
we're
day.
the low percent.
Land use to me, it just represents freedom. I mean, in America, we have such a unique situation where we have public lands. There's awesome places to explore all around the world, but you don't really have the endowment of public lands that we have as citizens in the US. Keeping access to those lands is actually an ongoing battle. And as I've been involved and learned more about the history of it, like this has been going on for a very long time, lots of different iterations, but it's accelerated. It's like a J curve where, you know, the battle was kind of humming along and then it's really skyrocketed in the last couple generations. And so what we're seeing now, I think, is kind of like reaching an apex point on that J curve where we have so much at risk and like we cannot not be in the battle for land access, public land access. So for anybody who loves any kind of off-roading, you know, single track, 4x4, side by sides, it doesn't matter. If you want a place to ride, you better get involved. If you want a place to race, you better get involved. And if you're not involved tangibly with your hands and your voice, then you better contribute financially because these places they're going to disappear right and left. Because if we're not engaged, they will be stripped away, and it's just happening so rapidly. So to me, it's very sexy because it is such a big challenge. The opportunity of what we need to advocate for protection is never ending. And then there are still opportunities too for expansion. And I've been excited to see that. Like we don't always have to be on the defense. We can be on the professional offense in the most tactful, legal, and appropriate way. But there's opportunities to see new trails added to our motor vehicle use maps, to have new riding areas opened up. We need to start really moving in more creative directions for that proactive advocacy, which it's hard to do because we always have so many battles to defend our ground that, you know, it really consumes you. But as much as we can invest our energy into expansion, perhaps the less that people will have to battle in the next generation that follows us.
So you definitely have your hands full because you're working with the government in California and Utah now as well. But I mean, you see the inside, and I always talk about how there's politics behind the politics, right? And you need to follow the leaders. And you are one of those leaders that have that knowledge base and the insight. So, what would be something along those lines that you would like to share with people how to follow that lead?
I think the lead is at a broad level through organizations and also at a very local level through your clubs and through your own personal endeavors. And so I always encourage people to get involved at both levels. The organizations like Cal 4-Wheel and Utah Public Lands Alliance, which I didn't mention earlier, but I also am absolutely overjoyed. I get to work in the same role as natural resources consultant for Upland now. Those organizations, though, are the ones who are really at the spear's tip in constantly tracking and monitoring what's going on, where are the threats, how can we quickly best position ourselves for response and engagement. They're leveraging resources and mobilizing in ways that allow us to be nimble and address things as they're coming at us, which they're always flying from 1,000 different directions. So those organizations are really important to support and become involved in, because no one person can have that nimble, resourced approach on their own. And that was one of the reasons I was so thrilled to encounter Cal 4. It's like, oh gosh, all these things that we've been trying to do locally, you're doing, but so much more effectively and at such greater scale. And that's, you're going to find organizations like that whatever corner of the US you're in. There's statewide organizations, there's OHV specific organizations, there's even race and event specific organizations. All of them, ultimately we all are cohesive with one another as we're moving towards the same goals. And so it doesn't really matter which one you join, though. I always will promote Cal 4 and Utah Public Lands Alliance as two of the best in the nation, covering, massive land mass between the whole state of California and the whole state of Utah. That's a lot of riding areas. A lot of really high value, treasured trails and open riding areas are contained just within the footprint that these two organizations cover. But support those organizations. And then at the local level, join a club, get involved with whomever is, taking care of the adopted trails in your region, or if there isn't anybody who's organizing adopted trails in your region, that's your call to action. Start one, because that work is so impactful, and that really layers up and plays into the work that's going on at the association levels. And they can't happen in isolation. Neither of them are totally successful unless the other is also doing their work in an earnest and effective way.
There's some keywords that I've known, and then you just brought a new one up to me as well. So let's define these keywords for everybody. And understanding national monuments, the word wilderness, and now the word temporary. Let's help everybody understand those.
Okay. Yeah,
My two favorite words, and then the third one now.
Oh yeah, there's a lot to unpack just with those. So national monuments are presidentially or congressionally designated areas that are set aside for specific purposes that don't include all multiple uses. And so every national monument is a little bit different because the characteristic of ultimately what is included in a designation varies monument to monument. There are the two ways of designation that I just mentioned, congressional or presidential, but the vast majority are presidentially designated, which means that by the stroke of a pen, whomever sat in the seat as president at that time signed a paper that designated some area of public lands as a national monument. National monuments were initiated, decades ago. And it originally, I think, was a fantastic idea. It was for the purpose of preserving historically, culturally, or scientifically very high value areas for the purpose of preservation. And so when you think of places like Devil's Tower in Wyoming, like that's a unique geological formation that we don't have anywhere else. That should have some special protections. That makes sense. There's some very old historical military forts that have, great importance to our nation's history that should be preserved. There's some cultural sites like Indian burial grounds, Indian settlements, and places that, we'll never get to replicate those in the future. And so those also should be cared for in a very special way. And those types of monuments make a lot of sense. But What has happened in the decades since the Antiquities Act, which is what it was called, that allowed for the creation of national monuments, since that got signed decades ago, what has happened is with this J curve, the national monument movement has been hijacked, functioning as a mechanism to take massive landscape scale footprints of public land and contain them within a monument designation with extremely limited permissions for the uses that are allowed within that monument's borders. And so we see monuments that are, over 1 million, sometimes multiple million acres in size. Mojave Trails National Monument, California, is 10 million acres. What is the historical site or the cultural site or the singular scientific value that's being protected there? It can't be defined. And so when you read the designation proclamations, which all of these landscape scale national monument designations have been made by a president, none of them have been made congressionally. And when you read the proclamations, it really becomes apparent that they're for the purpose of shutting humans out and containing a very isolated number of access and uses there. Usually they're very brief, like a page or two. Also, it's sadly so minimal. We have an issue. We have a problem with national monument designations in the United States right now because they are being hijacked and used inappropriately and illegally, quite frankly. Something that I think folks will want to pay attention to is that there's currently legislation to modify the Antiquities Act that would remove the president's ability to designate with the stroke of a pen and isolate national monument designation to Congress, which is 100% appropriate. That includes the voice of the people and involvement by the people who are in the area where a monument is proposed and designated. And so that's exactly how it should be done. And that's how it was always intended when the Antiquities Act was first created. So something to keep in mind, but there's a definition for national monuments, albeit a little bit long-winded.
Wilderness area is just as confusing to people that when they go to the voting.
Yes, so wilderness is different in that wilderness can be designated in any area of public land, whether that's national forests or Bureau of Land Management. And the purpose of a wilderness designation is also for preservation. In wilderness areas, there is no mechanized use or access at all. So you can't take an OHV into a wilderness area. You can't run a chainsaw to do forest thinning or cut down a tree for your own fireplace. You can't fly a drone. You can't, in some areas, have like low elevation aircraft. Search and rescue can't take a quad into wilderness to rescue an injured hiker. It's just highly, highly restrictive. And it's also a hands-off management approach for either the Forest Service or the BLM. It means that they're not actively managing that land through fuel management or vegetation management. If a wildfire happens and it burns into a wilderness area, their required policy is that they just let it burn. They cannot go in and suppress that fire because it's in wilderness. And so it's hands off completely. That's the easiest explanation. But where wilderness gets really confusing is that there are also wilderness study areas with wilderness characteristics. There's also areas of critical environmental concern that by definition match what's happening in other wilderness designated areas. And then there's a few other definitions that also fall under this umbrella of what I call de facto wilderness. I think a lot of people in land use call it de facto wilderness. Some people use the term wilderness laundering because it's designation of wilderness by any other name. Where wilderness has to be designated by Congress, you can have a wilderness study area or an area with wilderness characteristics or area of critical environmental concern designated just by the National Forest local district office or a BLM regional office through their land management planning activities. And so it's much more simpler to have it designated, but they also generally contain really large footprints of acreage that then become managed just like wilderness, and all the other uses, including OHV access, are removed.
Thank you very much for deep diving into both of those words because, when people get their ballots to vote and they see the word wilderness, a lot of times that's a positive word and they're excited about it. And what they don't realize is that they're voting themselves out.
Yes. Yeah, I think also people don't realize how much land is already contained in wilderness. I am not at all opposed to wilderness. As a hiker and a backpacker, I love getting out into the wilderness. It's a part of the experience that I hope everybody can have. And there's some really cool areas where, like here in California, where we have OHV trails that cross over that, like the Pacific Crest Trail, in areas that are not technically wilderness, but they're right there kind of within these corridors around wilderness. And so you're out in these really remote areas, but you have multiple uses that get to cross over and encounter each other. And it's a great experience. I've never talked to a PCT hiker who wasn't like thrilled by the chance of seeing somebody on a quad or on a Jeep. And they're thinking, how'd you get out here? I've been hiking for a week. And so, you can share a soda or have lunch together, whatever, swap some stories and move along. There's joyful ways to encounter multiple uses, and those crossovers are one way that happens. But in California, I use this as an example. I think it's replicated in Oregon, Washington, Utah, lots of other states in the West. We already have a very high percentage of our public lands that are contained within wilderness. And so off the top of my head, this is going to be a little bit of fuzzy math, so don't quote me hard numbers on any of this, but we have about 100 million acres in California. About 40 million acres are public land. And of that, we have at least 25%. And this is where I have it written down somewhere. I'd have to go back to it, but at least 25% is contained within wilderness designations. That's a lot of acreage. And when you think about the rest of the dispersion of land, there's urban areas, cities, agriculture use, other like soft recreational uses that aren't public lands, parks and things like that. We have a lot of land available. And so to already have that many million acres contained in hands-off, extremely limited access designation is, I think, enough. We do not need more wilderness. We just need to adequately manage the remainder of public lands that we have so that there's balanced use for all the other recreational purposes and multiple uses that serve to benefit from having these public lands.
So we've been talking a lot about California and Utah because that's what you're expert in at the moment. But we are, the folks listening are across the country. Is there any pro tips or tips for some of our East Coast friends? Like, we don't have as much public lands on the East Coast. Are you in a position to talk about any of that kind of stuff yet, or?
Well, I can't say I'm a subject matter authority on that. I just haven't had an opportunity to really dive deep, but I do network with a lot of folks and partner with organizations that are centered on the East Coast. And I know that there's different issues that are faced there. So where we don't have the same scale and quantity of public lands, there's a lot of private areas. Those, though, are also under similar types of threats as far as OHV access goes. Motorized recreation, I think, is the lowest hanging fruit of what opposition goes after in regard to limiting access to outdoor recreation for environmental purposes or other motivations that people may have. There's lots of them. But motorized access is like the most obvious low hanging fruit where people are like, carbon based engines bad. Let's get rid of all of that. And it really, I'm not going to go down that path of, the virtues of motorized recreation, though I think there are plenty. The fact is that it's a constant onslaught. And so there are, I know, a lot of efforts to solidify the parameters of how private OHV parks are operated and owned and preserved for perpetuity, because many of them are under, private ownership of a person, and you need to have mechanisms by which that can perpetuate from generation to generation. There's also similar threats that we face with public lands in relationship to endangered species protections, clean water, clean air, clean soil, and vegetation management activity. And so in those ways, we're able to actually partner and collaborate with one another a lot because we are facing the same battles. And I would recommend the same initial engagement to anybody in the East Coast and the Midwest where private lands are where you recreate, would be to get involved with your statewide organizations and get really involved with your local clubs and organizations, because those are also the ones that are at the spear's tip in making sure that these access opportunities are preserved and protected.
I could add like going to your local council meetings. Like
Yeah.
here, we're in a small town, and we had a council member come in and speak to us, and they were talking about selling off some public land. And I was like, that's why people come here, right? And she acted like those were words she had never heard before.
Hmm.
So I think just getting in, even into like you said, get involved, but your local level is also like go to your city council meetings and have a voice there too.
Oh yeah, Avis, I totally agree. It was through our engagement with the county that we had that success back in 2021. And it would not have been without the county that we could have accomplished that. They were
Yeah.
absolutely crux in moving that forward. There's lots of other partnerships that we've had at the county level. When you look at the Rubicon, when you look at different things going up and down the state, and in other states, yeah, your county engagement is important. So get involved there, and there again, local clubs and organizations are probably the ones that are helping to organize and orchestrate that so that it's happening in a meaningful way.
Yeah, and the economic impact is something else that is so significant from the off-road group as far as going even on the East Coast, even though they're going into private parks, like the economic impact of the small little town that it's right next to. And
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. And we're supposed to have some protections for that. So, like for federally managed lands, we have the National Environmental Protection Act, or NEPA, as many people refer to it, which requires analysis of economic impacts in any decisions that are made in any travel management planning, land management planning, or other project level planning. And then, like in California, we also have CEQA, the California Environmental Quality Act, which also requires similar analysis of economic impacts for the same reason. And yeah, it's that analysis of economic impacts that's usually glossed over or bypassed completely in the planning process. And so that's something that we have to advocate for over and over again, and really be staunch about it to ensure that that is included. And if it isn't, that sometimes that's where we need to litigate based on grounds of failure to analyze those things, and then bring up the voice of the people who are impacted, the business owners, the mechanic shops, the hotels and grocery stores and restaurants, and everybody, this domino effect of everybody who's affected if there are trail closures or restricted access to a riding area. It ultimately decimates families, it decimates communities, because that's the funnel, that's the mechanism that keeps these areas alive. And that's characteristics of definitely much of the West US, but the US as a whole. That's part of our identity and our structure in the United States. So it's very important to preserve, even for people who don't do off-roading. It impacts, communities nationwide.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Man, I could talk about this all day, but let's go into some fast questions. What do you think, Avis?
All right, let's do our second full throttle favorite rapid fire questions. Are you ready?
Ready.
Okay. What is your favorite trade show or event that you attend every year?
Favorite event is Sierra Trek up near the
Okay.
Fordyce Trail.
Where do you like to work? Rank and preference, like in the office, on the trail. Where's your favorite spot?
Laptop, lakeside, with a pole in the water.
Nice. Favorite part of the job?
Oh, being able to work on my laptop lakeside with a pole in the water. Yeah,
Okay.
no, that, and also just I couldn't stop with all my favorite things about this job, but being able to have meaningful impact in preserving access is really reward in and of itself.
What's the least glamorous part of the job?
When you're up at 2 a.m. reading through a 982 page document, trying to make sense of it so that you can file some meaningful comments within the next 48 hours because you just got to dive into that document that day.
Wow. I can't. If you could design any part or tool or anything with no budget or limits, what would it be?
Well, I'm mechanically ignorant. I'll mention that, and your audience may be dismayed because I'm
If you
not
could
the.
design any tool, any kind of tool to help keep public lands open.
Okay, well, I would redesign a lot of legislation. If I had unlimited budget and I could rewrite some of these horrendous policies, or the ones that have been hijacked, like the Antiquities Act, I would retool those front and back.
And then who would you want in your 3-rig dream trail ride? Anyone.
Anyone. Gosh, only three. So I'm going to go at this from the approach of land use too, because I'm not a racer,
Mhm,
things like that. So
mhm.
Yeah.
I'd want my mentors and I'd want my closest friends and family. That's way more than three. I have more than three mentors. Can I just have an entourage? Have a whole crew.
Sure. Yes. If you're keeping trails open, you can have whatever you like, Rose.
Yeah.
You said so.
You get a special pass.
Oh, I love
Amazing.
it. Oh my gosh, this is awesome. But seriously, like, I need to give a huge thank you to you and to everybody that is in this land use group that is reading these documents. Like, I have made comments after comments after comments to those of you that are in that level of this style of land use. Like, I can't do that. That's not me. Like, I appreciate you guys so much for reading these documents, for getting to the bottom of it, for understanding how we can be successful, and then in my arena, like, it's my job now to let everybody know what we can do, right?
Yeah.
But so thankful to you for staying up at I don't even know. I don't even want to know what time you're up reading 900-page documents and how you even like interpret them at that point in time. Like, I just, yeah, huge hearts. Everybody, if you're
Yes.
watching, like, we need to make sure that we're throwing Rose huge hearts and the team. There's other people that do it too, and it's
Yeah.
such a big deal. Such a
Yeah.
big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where do
I
we
have to
send the
throw
coffee?
Yeah. Yeah. What kind of coffee do you drink? That's what we
Yeah.
need to know next.
mushroom coffee.
What's your caffeine of choice?
Rise mushroom coffee because I got into a pretty dangerous over coffee consumption
I,
situation. I had
I
to
could see
scale back.
that.
So I mostly drink tea, and then those late nights I indulge in mushroom coffee. It's super effective, actually. It feels way better than regular coffee, too. Plug for Rise.
I've never
Interesting.
They can
tried
pay
it.
me
Never
later.
heard it.
I kind of want to rotate a little bit here. And like, what's your proudest hell yeah moment that you've had so far and since you've been working in the off-road industries?
Oh gosh, there's so many. You know, uh, I'm really proud. I feel so proud when we have issues where I see our membership come together and really get involved in submitting comments and showing up at public meetings. Like, those things matter so much, and I know it's a huge sacrifice for everybody who does it. Like you were saying, Charlene, not everybody has the time or the will to read through these documents and write exhaustive comments. I love to do it. So fortunately, I found a job where it's something I love doing, happens to be what I'm able to do for my work. Practically speaking, I think that's one of the reasons that government agencies make these documents so cumbersome, is to discourage people from reading them. I get
Yeah.
so frustrated with that because we have lots of people who really deeply care. They're very significantly impacted, but who has time after their day, Monday through Friday job, plus raising a family and caring for a home and being involved in all the other community organizations? Who has time to go and read through those things and write substantive comments? So always a goal of mine is to try and make those things easier to access and more digestible to interpret, with some easy to find templates that allow you to put together a
Mhm.
comment, submit it, and have it be like the easy button at Staples, versus
Yeah.
an
Yeah.
arduous thing. Or I don't want other people staying up late at night to read these documents. For goodness sake, none of us should be doing that, but that's how the system works. And showing up to public meetings is also a huge sacrifice because a lot of them happen during the day and people have to take time off work or use vacation hours to go and do that. So my hell yeah moments are often in those meetings when I look around and I see people from our membership and from the community. I'm just thrilled, and I'm a hugger, so I always have to refrain myself from running up and hugging people. Instead, shake their hand and thank them profusely for investing their time and their effort. It is so meaningful, and the impact that it makes in how those decisions are made is significant. So I can't overemphasize that. Really amazing. Like, I've been in this for such a short time, to have had a few
Mhm.
big victories has been tremendous. One of the and none of these happen in isolation. Like, I work with Cal 4 Wheel, I work with Utah Public Lands Alliance, but we're always networking with other organizations too. And so it's that collective effort that brings about these wins. So like the decision from the court at Oceano Dunes, where the California
Mhm.
Coastal Commission got their hand slapped. They were told, you don't get to have jurisdiction. My God, that felt good, because that has been a very long battle. I've been in a part of it. It started long before I started working with Cal4, but that was massive, massive, massive to have that commission removed from influence. That was huge, hell yeah moment. And that goes out as a shout out to not only Cal4, but every other organization that worked their tails off to reach that goal. We've also had some really cool partnerships emerge where we are getting trails analyzed to add back into the motor vehicle use map in Sierra National Forest. And there's been other places where we've had new trails added. Those are huge hell yeah moments, because it is arduous work to get just a little bit of mileage pushed through the NEPA process, pushed through all the protocol that the Forest Service has, or the BLM, and then actually written in on a map where you get that loop reconnected, or you get that trail that will take you over to the other most amazing trail, so you don't have to ride an hour around. Those are such huge victories, and even though they feel they're kind of small, they're massive because of the work that's invested to go into them. And then I think, like, very recently, a crowning jewel that I'm so incredibly proud of, and I don't even know how to put it into words still, is having received the Bob Ham Land Use Award from the Offroad Motorsports Hall of Fame was such a shock. I was so surprised. I would never have imagined that my name would circulate in that arena for decades to come, because it has been, in the grand scheme, just a blip of time that I've been able to do this work. And so I'm so honored, and have a tremendous gratitude for my mentors and those that have really helped me to hit the ground running with this. But that was a massive moment. I just could not stop beaming, and so filled with gratitude and pride for that. So sorry, Charlotte. There's a few. There's many more too. I'm not saying.
That was such a great night for you, and for land use in general, and being able to see everybody up on stage. That was a really, really incredible moment. Relationships are super strong in this environment, right? And you have a background with career coaching and with academia, in business development. Like, what are some of your pro tips for those that may be listening of how to build networks, how to build relationships, and whether it be in the politics side or whether it be in their business side or whatever? What are some of your pro tips on that category?
My number one pro tip, the approach I try to take to everything, is that everyone is an asset. Every single human you meet is an asset for something, whether it's a piece of knowledge that they have, or a connection that they may be able to get you to, or a piece of history in their own background that becomes meaningful to the story you're trying to tell or the goal that you're trying to accomplish. Like, literally every human is an asset, even if it's somebody that you might perceive as your opposition, because we can learn a lot from folks that we see opposing what we're doing. We have to study their tactics and strategy. We need to understand their mindset, so that when we're presenting ours, we're not just doing it, like, well, here's what we think. Here's why we're passionate about this. We have to present ourselves in a way that compels others who don't share our ideology or our passions to understand and care about why this particular trail shouldn't be closed, or why we can mitigate for the western toad on this slope of the Sierra Nevada and still be able to go there and enjoy ourselves. All those things look like competing interests, but at the end of the day, if we can open dialogue, if we can understand and care about their perspective as much as we care about ours, that's where we find workable ground that we can either be more effective in our approach. Sometimes we wouldn't always come to a point of compromise or be able to see things eye to eye with those who do oppose us, but we can be more effective in our approach, and also demonstrate to them that we're not out for it just for ourselves. We really do care about these things. And at the end of the day, OHV writers, we're all conservationists too. And I think we get a really bad rap from people who demonize us as, habitat destroyers and people who just don't care, and everybody's throwing their beer cans out the window and lighting fires behind them. Like, some of the most active and effective conservationists I've ever met are solely within the OHV world. I think if we could bring those stories to the surface, that would carry tremendous impact in what we're trying to accomplish. So, bridging those things, I guess I'm getting way off the trail on the pro tip for networking.
Well,
Just everyone's an asset.
thanks for you. Thanks for the rock that you just landed on, because that's like one of my PR moments is where we talk about be the hero, not the zero. You know, the off-roaders are the ones that are out there picking up trash, as an example.
Yes.
And so then we promote that we pick up trash. But the problem is the people that don't realize what's actually happening is like, oh, well, off-roaders put all that trash out there. And so they're just picking up after themselves, where really that's not the truth. We're the heroes, not the zeros. Like, we're out there picking up after other user groups that are either dumping, or I'm going to pick on the shooters for a second, right? Because they're horrible at leaving all of their shots out there and everything. And so here's these off-roaders picking up after other user groups, not necessarily, you know, the water bottle that flies out by accident. Is definitely a PR rotation that I'm trying to work on myself with everybody and help, like, say, yeah, look, we did this today, but it wasn't really in an area that an off-roader made the mess. We just happened to have the vehicle that was capable of cleaning up the mess. And so I think that that's pretty important. Because again, you're in a different space today than you have been in most of your career. What would you tell your younger self? Like, I've been seeing a lot of memes lately, like, when I was 20, I should tell myself I should do this because it's going to lead to that. Like, what would you tell your younger self?
Again, one thing.
No, well, it can be a series. It could be some flashcards.
Okay. Well, I would definitely reinforce that mantra, try anything once. Because that's what's led me down this path to get to here, is just let's keep trying. Let's see what is behind that door. And I never would have encountered this ultimately if I hadn't been willing just to try. I think I'd also tell myself, like, never lose sight of the horizon, because I do remember there were times in my younger years where like, I really loved my work as a career counselor in academia, but the one thing I didn't like was having to be in an office. And there were days that I would literally feel like I was just withering to death inside. I'd be like, I have to get this work done, but I'm looking at these four walls and it's a gorgeous day outside. I just want to run away and escape forever. And I couldn't do that, you know? So I think on those days it was, you know, unnecessary drudgery. If I could have anticipated the things, the opportunities that I would have encountered down the road, I think it would have had a very different outlook then. And so when I work with young people now, when I'm talking with my own daughters and other family members and friends, and, you know, they see these steep mountains that they have to climb, and they're thinking, I've got this amazing idea of myself and what I'd like to contribute to the world, but I have no idea how to make that happen. I would just really urge folks, and I wish I had to keep looking at that horizon. Like, don't ever lose sight of your mountaintop. And even if the work that you're doing today or for this year, this season, feels like drudgery, like you are making steps that will open up doors. And if you keep that mountaintop in sight, then you're going to find a little rabbit trail at one point that's going to totally surprise you, and you're just going to zip up these switchbacks and all of a sudden you're there or you're closer to it. You know, you're doing more of what you love. It's all a journey. So yeah, those would be some of the things I'd tell myself.
So what is your next mountaintop? What's your next goal? What are you shooting for right now?
Well, we have some giant projects at hand. The next 2 to 3 years of work in land use are going to be very intense because we have a landscape within our federal administration that has opened some opportunities that are probably once in a generation, if maybe once ever. And we have to capitalize on those. And so I'm uber focused on these next 3 years to make as many of those actions happen as is possible. But it's going to be arduous work. There's, you know, things that need to go through Congress. There's lots of partnerships that have to be forged and maintained and built. And There's legislation that has to be changed. There's court decisions that need to surface in greater clarity and be brought forth in a way that they impact how future court decisions will be made. So I'm saying everything in broad strokes because, we'll have to see how all these things unfold. But the next 3 years are absolutely crucial. And so a lot of my goals wrap around that. But also we have some very specific areas. In land use, there's always the big picture, and then there's also the local, like where is something at risk of closure picture. And we have a few very critical areas that are kind of teetering at risk. And so my goals are very focused on making sure that those turn out positively, that we don't lose access, and that maybe even we can leverage this threat that we're facing to ultimately serve a greater purpose of good and not only preserve something, but maybe enhance or expand something in the process. I was trying to find ways that, like, how can we make this better? We don't want to just protect it, but let's also see if we can loop in, this gemstone to throw on top of it. So I've got a few goals related to that. And then another big goal I have is just to spend as much time outdoors as possible. So I haven't done any backpacking this summer. And so this winter, my goal is to make sure that doesn't happen next summer. I need to get some trips planned, things in place so that I have some non-negotiable spaces where I know I'm out of office.
Flip the sign to closed.
Yeah. Temporarily, but yes.
Let's do our final full throttle favorites rapid fire questions. Okay, what trail or area is on your bucket list?
The Pacific Crest Trail. I would really love to do the whole thing, even if it's in segments. But if I could take enough time at some point to do the whole thing, that would be amazing.
Amazing. Coworker trait that you value the most?
Candid feedback. Because we only all have our own site, right? And I always try to be thorough and accurate, but I know that I have limitations. And so I always appreciate when I receive feedback that pushes me in ways that I need to either look at something further or reconsider something that ultimately becomes really useful and constructive.
Love that. What is your secret superpower in your business life?
The ability to tolerate lack of sleep.
Sounds like
That's a superpower. Yeah.
Yes.
Actually, the true one, I think, is just flexibility. There's so much going on at any given time. Like, I really feel adept at jumping between projects and being able to switch my mindset on a dime. If I get a phone call or something comes up, it's like, all of a sudden this is urgent and I have to drop everything and do that. I feel pretty good about it. It doesn't bother me.
Good. I like that. What's the best advice you've ever gotten?
Find great mentors.
Love that. If your career had a theme song, what would it be?
Oh, Immigrant Song by Led Zeppelin.
I'll have to look that one up.
What? You don't have to look it up because you might have it playing in your head if you know anybody who knows the beat. It's such an amazing song, and the message is great.
I probably know it. I just don't know the title. I'm not a big words music person. Okay, last question. What is the next skill you want to master?
I'd really like to master more legal fluency. I'm not a lawyer. I think maybe at some point in my life, perhaps I should have gone to law school. But it really is crucial to the work that we do. And so I don't think I'll go to law school in the future. That's another investment of time I don't relish the idea of undertaking. But I do want to just really expand my legal fluency further so that I can be fast with it and quickly able to reference things that matter most.
And your enthusiasm is so infectious. So I think if you learn that, it's going to spread to other people. So I'm in favor.
Cool. Well, it's all give and take. So others' enthusiasm will come rolling back.
There you go.
So the PCT is on my list as well, but have you done any big hike trips somewhere else?
Most of my backpacking has been in California. So I've done pieces of the PCT throughout the central Sierra Nevada. I got to work at a backpackers resort that's a PCT way stop for one summer. And so all of my weekends off, I would just go on trail or off trail, I'd just go. And that was amazing. So I got to cover a lot of the mileage in that whole region. And then done some more extended camping and hiking trips, with family and stuff throughout the state. So nothing though that can piece it together with any significance. So Charlene, maybe we should do it together.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm going to be the slow one.
Meandering is the way to go. You have to see all the roses the whole trip.
Yeah, I had no idea it was on my list until one of my friends went and did it, and he came back and did a photo display at a local art gallery. And so we went just to support him. Like, we were supporting him through his trip, but then we went and supported the pictures, and I'm like, okay, yeah, that's definitely something for 10 years from now, right? When we have enough time to actually take 4 months off or however long it takes. But what a goal. What a huge goal.
Yeah.
That is not on my bucket list.
Yeah. So just funny though, Avis, like every time I pass the PCT now, like I cross it with the Jeep or something, I always take a picture. I'm like, that's the spot. Yeah.
That's the spot. Yeah, every time I pass it, I'm like, wow, that's where those crazy people go. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
I think it's very admirable. It is just outside of anything I desire to do. But you guys go. I'll send care packages.
I was going to say, will you send us new shoes?
I will. I'll deliver them. How about that?
Or Avis, come meet us at a waypoint and hang out for a few days.
Yeah.
I could do a few days. We just did our first 4-day backpacking trip this year. And
I was going to say, you just did one.
Yeah. And then we have another one this year. We're hoping to be able to backpack in Glacier. So we're waiting for permits.
Cool.
Oh, that would be beautiful.
Yeah. That's cool.
So somebody else plans it and gets the permits. Rob and I, we just show up. So it's the best.
Yeah, that's the way to do it. Awesome. Well, we have a few more questions as we shut this down because we've been really intrigued with the answers. As all of us as women, we have different ways. So how do you keep track of your notes and your to-do lists? What are your pro tips?
I calendar everything because I will be lost without my calendar. I would not show up where I need to be. I wouldn't know what I'm talking about. So I do a lot of note taking. I have a separate Word document for every project, for every group. And so that way, when I'm engaged in something, it's not just like my notes, but I can get to my notes for that specifically. And I can't hold it all here. So literally, I would be lost. But notes and calendar. That's how I organize myself.
Do you have something that is a routine for the day? Like something that you do first thing in the morning, afternoon, evening? Like what's your routine?
I like to get outside first thing in the morning. So sunshine is the first order of the day. Just try to breathe fresh air and kind of get centered and grounded a little bit before heading into the flurry. And that usually involves some prayer, a devotion, and tea or mushroom coffee. Then I'm ready to open up my laptop and let things go as they come.
Yeah, no kidding. And then how do you turn your brain off at night? Like at whatever time you go to bed, whether it's, I don't know, how do you even go to bed? I'm not really sure if this question applies. Like,
oh my gosh. Okay. I was laughing when you sent that question because I looked at it and I thought, do people do that? Turn your brain off. I've not had that experience, I don't think, in my life. So I don't turn my brain off. I just at some point fall asleep. But I will say magnesium helps. I'm really into health food and herbs, and I've discovered in the last couple of years how important magnesium is, and that really does help me sleep deeply because I do have just, if you could see inside my brain, it'd be like one of those cartoony, constantly going hamster wheels or something. Nobody wants to see it.
Yeah, nobody wants in.
No. But I'm not somebody who will ever, I don't take medication or do anything like that. And so anyhow, magnesium though really does help me just settle down and get deep, deep sleep. And I'm so grateful for it.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
You also mentioned at one point about how getting involved in this land use category has motivated some spiritual conviction. How do you mean that?
I really do think that the freedom and the rights that we have as citizens to this public endowment, like our public lands are not just lands that are out there. They're not owned by the government. And it always irks me beyond belief when I see all these documents that say Forest Service owned or BLM owned or state parks owned land. They own nothing, nothing. We own it. And we need to really embrace that ownership because it is our land that they're taking away from us when they close a trail or they restrict an area or they temporarily shut down something that becomes a 10-year closure. All that being said, I tie that very deeply to my faith. It was my faith convictions that got me into the advocacy to begin with, because as I saw the closures happening in my local area, I saw the families that were impacted. I saw that this was really a set of mechanisms that go far beyond a community or the people or even governance itself. Like there's a machine behind it that does not have our best interests at heart. And ultimately, it's like to me, it's an anti-spiritual mechanism because we find such meaningful respite when we're out in wild spaces. And that's one of the most beautiful things about America is that we all have access to it. It doesn't matter what level of wealth you have or have not. All of us can enjoy our public lands. And so to have that taken away is literally to take away our access to enjoy calm and the beauty of nature and the oneness that we all inherently experience with nature. Those are God-given gifts, you know? And so when I read scripture and I'm like reading Psalms and Proverbs, and thousands of years ago, people were writing about the same things, you know, I sit beside the still waters and I'm refreshed. That's what I feel. And so to me, when I'm working to preserve access to somewhere, it's not just because that trail is fun or we like going there, there's an important multiple use. It's because ultimately, like, they have no place to take that away from us. It is ours. And it's our spiritual endowment as well as our citizenry endowment. And so to me, those go hand in hand.
I love it. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that with us.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Be sure, everybody, like, subscribe, hit that thumbs up button. Do you have any last words for us, Rose? And how can people find you, or where do they find the information or the links to sort of like start getting involved?
Yeah. Okay. So if I could give a call to action and then the connection, that would be great. Okay. So call to action, there's actually 4. So that 1A is,
of course there's 4.
I love this. 1A, our organizer.
I love it.
Here.
I love it. Sorry, did not mean to interrupt.
Sorry, go ahead.
See, this is the feedback I need sometimes.
No, I love it. I seriously love it.
So, but first call to action, 1A is find out if your local OHV trail, your favorite place to ride, find out if it has an adopt a trail. And if it doesn't, go be that person. Start and adopt a trail there. Figure out what you need to do with the Forest Service, the BLM. And if you're not sure what to do, contact me. I will happily help you figure that out in your area, whatever state you're in the US. But we need those adopt a trails to be going, because without them, we lose our ground and we lose our battles so rapidly. If your favorite trail is already adopted, then find something else. Maybe it's not your favorite, but it's nearby. Find something else and adopt that. Second, stay on the trail. As OHVers, we are constantly under the scrutiny of people who see the most ridiculous social media posts where people are ripping up a mountainside or tearing down a mining relic in the desert, doing just some really, quite frankly, asinine things that don't represent what the land use advocacy and the OHV community stand for and work for. And so we get hit with that reputation, though, because people throw these things out on social media. But if we are super consistent about staying on the trail, riding in the designated areas, and preaching that to everybody that we ride with, that only expands and impacts. And so we need that message to just be the loudest, the clearest, the most resonant everywhere for all time to come. Third, join Cal 4-Wheel, join Utah Public Lands Alliance, or join your organization of any name for your state. But these organizations I know are very highly effective at keeping trails open, at protecting our riding areas, at working at the forefront so that less risk of closures happen because we're out there proactively. And it's our memberships that drive that work. And so we can only survive based on how many members we have and those that are engaging with us or contributing through their dues or other donations. So please join. It means a lot. And then fourth, contribute to the legal funds. So there are so many battles that end up in court, and I'm looking at a list of them right now that we have to work in 2026. And we do everything possible to keep things out of court and to resolve things at the plan level, to partner with the government agencies and to partner with all the other stakeholders that are involved so that there's a cohesive and highly effective solution brought before anything has to go to court. But the fact is that there's a lot that doesn't get resolved outside of court, and we're all nonprofit organizations. So your contributions to the legal funds are the other big hammer that drive this work, and we need them. We're working for you. So help us help you and partner in that with us. How to connect. So for Cal 4-Wheel and Utah Public Lands Alliance, please go to our websites. There's a lot of content on there for my work as a natural resource consultant for both organizations. You can learn all about the different fights that we're involved in, the successes that we've had, the ways that members have been involved on each of those sites. That is a great one-stop shop. I am also on Facebook as Rose Winn. I don't think there's many Rose Winns out there, but now you see my face, you'll see my picture. I do use my personal and professional Facebook kind of intermingled because I'm the same person. I don't like to have that separation. And so I invite that connection with folks in the off-roading world because I do post a lot about some of the most important battles that we're doing there and just have that dialogue going with folks. Plus, I like to connect with people. And this gives me a chance to know all the different wonderful people, many of whom have become friends through this work, and be able to keep that engagement going outside of just, campaigning for letter writing initiative or asking people to show up at a public meeting. But we're all people, and I love to know your stories too, and maybe become friends. You can't have too many. I'm also on LinkedIn. So for a more professional front, I'm on LinkedIn as Rose Winn. Same thing, you can find me by my name there, and on Instagram as Rose of Sharon. So I'll look forward to connecting with everybody through whatever is your favorite platform. Oh, I have a YouTube also, but I'll share some of those links if you'd like, and just would love to connect.
Thank you so much for sharing your time and this wonderful education. I feel very educated. So I really appreciate it. And thank you for being with us today.
Well, thank you so much for the opportunity. I really appreciate it. It's been such a fun conversation, and thank you for putting the message of land advocacy out there. I really am excited to see what comes of this, and I appreciate all the work that each of you are doing too. You're both phenomenal women that I admire, so to have the opportunity to chat with you today is such a privilege. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Rose. Very much appreciated. And it is such an important topic. And I think you did a great job of breaking it down so that everybody can grab that message and take it and apply that into the 4 bullet points of action items. It's always lovely talking to you. And for everybody at home, make sure that you go to the She Conquers Dirt Bower Power Hour series and check out some of these other amazing ladies and their perspectives.
Get an entry into our week of giving by watching. 1 entry per episode, must complete the form and click submit. Check out this next episode. It's pretty exciting too.